Right. Good morning. Good morning, guys. I got Ethel. Noticeable. Right. So next week onwards, we are having 3 hours. So we are starting from the and only for the presentation, we are starting from 8 in last 2 weeks. Right. Right. And also you are having 2 online sessions also. Right. So that will inform staff. Right. Because we have to advance the semester, I think, for 2 weeks because of your some of your evaluations, qualifications, so you have to go to the so therefore they have advised us to advance by 2 weeks. So therefore there are 2 online sessions. So then within that 2 weeks, so I supposed to take it in during this coming 2 weeks. So then we can complete the research. So then we can prepare for your assignment. Assignment is something of the activity. What I learned then is after initial, right? So they can do the scientific prepare. Because it take 4 or 5 weeks to complete the risk management. Right. So after completing risk management, only you can do the science. That's our initial plan. We have to go with that. Right. So what you can do is when we finish off the one session, so you can work with the assignment in that session. That part. Otherwise, you can wait until finish. Then you can complete your assignment within 2 or 1. I think sometimes it will be 1 week. Our technical test is also right. For the 1 13 week is 14 week time, 15 week time, assignments are effect on the also percentage plan. The 13 week can do again certificate pattern. Within 9 week. I have done 8 week but could say correct right? And there's a request is coming from your batch. I will keep the this 9:30, 9:30. From your batch coordinator, I received some concerns. Because some of you guys are working till 9, so they are going home 9:30 around 9. So we will start the quiz at 9:30. 9:30. Is it okay, right? The Kali here today. That's it. Right. So any other issues? No? Online people, any other issues? Can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. We can hear you.
All right. Any issue regarding the assignments? No? All right. So that's about the assignment, right? Because the assignment is very important. I am allocating 50 marks for the assignments. 50 marks, okay? Out of your 100 marks, 50 marks will be allocated to the assignments. Right? So this time also when I'm reviewing the papers, right? The highest marks earn 70 marks. Right? Others are between 50 to 30 of the paper. But still they have to pass the exam because of the assignments. Right? So therefore, coming to the assignments is very important. And for the paper, only 50 marks. And for the assignment, 50 marks. Paper get a C of 9, assignments only C of 1. So the assignment on dark and then you C of 1. Okay, all right. Yeah. All right. I'll come after this. Okay. I will explain what you have to do. Basically, the assignment is on risk management. Pangkat dia nan, bukan kerana mana mulai kerana mana sebenarnya company itu kan, PSC company, ya public interest company. Itu mana advice kerana berkasih juga, bukan cek kalau balan dia lah, mau mereka, bukan dah ada mereka company itu select kerana apa? Ego internally kerana. Jadi kamu company itu select kerana, kamu company itu select kerana apa? Yang mau kamu ambil ini saya kata. Anda kalau boleh select kerana, saya kata boleh kerana, boleh kan kalau company itu select. Company itu select kerana mana tip kerana deta. Tapi risknya itu saya kata itu very good. Risknya company itu select kerana. तो लोगों ने analyze कर ली थी। लाहर नहीं तो लोगों ने group of company का select करता। हमारी individual company सुनती है PSC में। ऐसा वाला लोग finance sector के company का finance sector के company का तो थोड़ा risk होती है। लेकिन तो एक बार ला लोगों डिजाइन कर लोगों हमारी ना company का डिजाइन कर। ये बात से हमारे के categorize करना चाहिए ना। एक category so they can mau katakan sessions bahan kita itu harus paham mau categorize कर lebih design. I have categorized so that 5 categories, right? So based on these categories, you need to analyze the ERM framework of the company. Right? Enterprise risk management. Right? Every PSC company has to report the ERM. Enterprise risk management policies there in the company. So what we are going to do is you need to analyze that. Right? If you can reach for the internal information also, that's also good. Also contact that you know company की authority ला review करना हमारे information का होना एक होता है आपने तो आता है कि या फिर अंदर में तो लेट देंगे जैसे अभी बोलना इंटरनल information से तरह ना बहुत इग्नोर डिस्कशन है जो इंटरनल right हमारे ना that's okay. So initial what you have to do is you have to select a good company and you get to so if you are having 5 members so you can divide one member to do this part. She can also do the percentage and she can also answer the questions in that part. EOB. That's how we have to back. And when it means for presentation, you need to pass the picture. Yeah, group of companies that are subject to itu udah wah perspektif wah risk management framework का analyze करना है group of company perspective तो बात होना subsidiary में आगे subsidiary company है ना एक में आगे risk क्या ना बोला क्या ना बोला that's all right group of company का analyze करने के लिए subsidiary company का analyze करना है for example so you are selecting the Johnny Solny as a company so on the Johnny Solny there's finance company called JKH sorry Union insurance. So you are going to start with the JK and you are moving to the union insurance. That's all the way out. Right? You need to analyze the JK stock. Can use the facts from the union insurance. That's okay, but don't move to the union insurance. If you are taking the union insurance, they take the union insurance. Right? Clear?
Yes, sir. Investment company yes, investment company investment take a lead for like
बाकी एक कंपनी का एनालाइज करना ग्रुप कंपनी का एनालाइज करना और सब्सिडी का सिलेक्ट करना है सब्सिडी कंपनी का वो वैटे बाबा का भी होते हैं वैटे करना है एक का कंपनी का सिलेक्ट करेगा कंपनी को ग्रुप कंपनी का और दो सब्सिडी कंपनी से भी इम्पैक्ट एनालाइज करो बाहर को मत यार ना हो मेरा स्किल वाली रिपोर्ट एक उदाहरण हो तो एक बदला एक क्या जीपी दल को भी पेश करने का मैं भी रिपोर्ट देखा था कि लिया नहीं पा अरे तो ने प्रॉम्प्ट के लिए मंदा ना मैं लिया नहीं पा अरे तो ना पूरा क्या जीपी का डाले एक रिपोर्ट करें वो आगे एनुअल रिपोर्ट का अपलोड कर सारा प्रॉम्प्ट के लिए आता है मैं लिए था वो मेरी रिपोर्ट के खत्म दे तो लास्ट खत्म दे मैं तो इन दल को पढ़ा हुआ राइट I'm having the third key with the AI text. Well, believe that I don't get that. That's it. That's it. On breakfast, you go there on breakfast, and there were fishing of business. Then it was not a whole again, of course, after being doing again. Out of the end of the window. Yeah, presentation and go. The GST cover on the doing. To go again. On that one. Well, more than no grants, right? Right. So I'm moving on to the today's discussion. Right. So we are starting the risk management today, right? Which is one of the important part in our syllabus. So before moving to the risk management, so when I'm looking at this slide, so what's the meaning of this slide? Can you understand? Yeah, no, no, okay. Well, they can. Yes. Can you understand this slide? So there are a few letters. Right? First letter is A. So this I will give a key. Right? These letters, each of these letters represent one of the major risks in today's question. So I'm asking what is the meaning of A? A. A stands for yes, correct. Artificial intelligence. Right? Right? Artificial intelligence. Very good. So that is the one of the key risks nowadays in the companies and also you all can. If I come in the here, this year, some educators like this, some you more than a the paper will either the other presentation, research, everything you are doing using the AI. AI can go there and disappear. Only was Kalpana Grande. Like, really, if you that you basic level, it was to see. Right. They can so. So we don't want it to go our research. There are so many tools. So that is a kind of a risk. As an educator, I'm a big risk from the artificial intelligence. Right? That's why I'm using a turning with AI. Only for turning software, AI take a different. That is the outcome. The one country of the AI dependent. But now they have incorporated the AI sector. Right? If you are to done the therapist, they have guidelines. Right? How we can do is you can put it to that GPT and you can copy and paste and you can do the paraphrase. Then sometimes the trend can can't capture, but now the trend can capture. ऐसा करते करे AI डिटेक्ट का आपको paraphrase करना active special करना paraphrase करना पेन paraphrase किया तो active special इसको pero हम ना मेरे ChatGPT हमारा jadi so one risk the company is having is artificial intelligence, right? I'll give you one example, right? So if you are working as auditors, right? If you are working as auditors in audit firms, right? So one big risk the auditors is having is what? There is a possibility that auditors will lose their job, the training level auditors, right? Recently, EY, right? EY, they have done some survey whether we can do a vouching of supporting documents. We can do it with using a robots. The vouching of particular supporting documents for house card. You know, like the robots for that, robots of Pasia, yes, color. They get a document that has the political. I from take another day, I go up over the go to the current. You take up further, I get that. මම නම් එහෙම කරලා තියෙනවා. ඔය කියන්නේ නෑ. අපේ ගමට එකක් බලවා ලොකු එක කරනවා. හයිස් එක නේද කරනවා. හයිස් එක බලවා. දෙලා නැති. Right. So that is one trick the company said. Then B. What's the B? Blockchain is a kind of advantage. There will be this also. More than blockchain. With the blockchain, what we are generating? Not the bitcoins. Blockchain again, bitcoins is running all. They will, you know, big data. Right? Big data. What do you mean by big data? What do you mean by big data? For example, if you are go and search something, Google. So next again, if you are scrolling down in the Facebook, right? You can see the same advertisement. So one issue when it comes to financial reporting is, right? We are not presenting the big data in the financial statements. That's one big issue. For example, when it comes to WhatsApp, what is the major asset WhatsApp is? Let's say data, that's the major asset. Most valuable asset they have building vehicles, big data, data. And over that, as well, over the other have big data. Galle and other cars, they can get over that data. Hundred more right? Can't take a jacker, right? That is a biggest asset they are, the valuable asset they are, but they are not representing the financial statements. That's one of the issue nowadays. ISB is discussed international accounting standard code. So how we are incorporating this big data into the financial report. And also for the companies also this big data is there. That is a kind of a big risk. Right? Big data. Right? All right. See, what is the C? C. C. See, you're taking some parts in the with issues. Now, company is part included in the digitalization. See, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity. What do you mean by cybersecurity? What cybersecurity? So cybersecurity. So we are now in a kind of a cyberspace, right? Everything is in cyberspace, like big data. So therefore, there is security issues. Now, like the cyber space again, make a break, maybe big data access security can right. I will that. Mage MS master data. The whole we say what. Well, then we say one upload right. The better one risk is the big one. You know, or when I write the one, my boss things, the road of what I got. We say one. That's cybersecurity. Right? That's cybersecurity. When it comes to companies also, they are having cybersecurity. For example, let's say one example I have told you before, I think urine assurance, right? The same thing here discussed. In the insurance companies, so they are having so much of data. If someone is coming to that data and change the data, what will happen? The mom was the mom. System again, mom of them, Magia, the internet, then those. List cyber security attack කරනවා මගේ නේද වෙන්නේ කියලා. මොකද මම මොකද වෙන්නේ කියලා. That's a big issue. The company said cyber security. Then D. D. What do you mean by D? Obviously, digitalization. Like cloud computing also included digitalization. What do you mean by digitalization? In 2020 or somewhere, like we don't have food. අපි දන්නේ නැහැ food කියලා. දැන් ඉස්සෙල්ලා දැන් 19 ඉස්සෙල්ලා food කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ. එකම දේ දන්නේ Skype. Right? Skype එක විතර දන්නේ. Food කියලා MS Teams we don't know. Right? So in 2021, we have a big issue how we are delivering the lectures because we are in the politics. We can't meet the students. So then Zoom is coming on. Right. Zoom is coming. So that's the digitalization. Everything is digitalized. It's a smart board to be there. It's a presentation that we normally. Our colleague, this is transparent quality. Transparent colleague, I think project taker මෙහෙම දානවා. දැන් මොන පස්සේ ඒක තමයි display. ඒක display. ඉතින් ලියාගෙන ඉන්න කොලේක transparent කොලේක ලිය ගන්නවා අපි. ඉතින් ඒලා light එක ඇති නැත්නම් තමයි ඒක තමයි display එකනේ. Display. Project එක. It's a presentation screen. So digitalization. Then robotics is coming from digitalization. Under the digitalization. R. R. Yes, yes. Please. Other risk we have risk management. Right? Risk management. Right? Risk management. And E. 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 Last week discussion. Ethics. Right? Ethics. Right? ඊළඟට තියෙන risk එක තමයි ethics. මේකට ethics නැහැ. ethical issues නැහැ. Right? That's a big risk for the company. දැන් හිතන්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ company එකක් වුණ කරා. මිනිස්සු ඔක්කොම ලංකාවේ ඉන්න මිනිස්සු ඔක්කොම හොරු. දරුවක් company කරන්නේ. That's a big risk. The company ethics. Then yes. 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 Sustainability. Sustainability. Next issue. අපි කොහොමද ඉස්සරහට ජීවත් වෙන්නේ? අනාගතේ දක්වා සමාගන්නේ. Sustainability. How we are sustained. Right. So those are the few big issues nowadays the companies have. Right. Artificial intelligence, big data, cyber security, digitalization, risk management. Risk management is also a risk because if you are managing the risk properly, it's a risk. And ethics, we don't have ethical people. And yes, transparency. Right. So when you are analyzing a PLC company, you know, right? So you can see basically these risks they have addressed. They address cybersecurity, how we need to manage the cybersecurity, how we need to manage the ethics, sustainability, so likewise. Right. Right. So with that, I'm moving on to this discussion. Right. Risk management. Right. What do you mean by risk here? Anyone knows? What is the risk here? Avadan. What do you mean by risk? Yes. Do we have risk? Can we eliminate the risk? No, you can eliminate the risk 100%. Okay, you can't. 100% element gun was used. Like example like risk management එකට උදාහරණයක් ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ ඊළඟ බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ පිටු වෙන ගානේ right උදාහරණයක්. එයාට රිස්ක් එකක් තිබ්බා කලින් යා ඉපදුනාට පස්සේ කට්ටිය කිව්වා එයා වෙනවා. එයා පොඩ්ඩක් එක්ස්පර්ට් කෙනෙක් වෙනවා. ඒකට තාත්තා බලමු. තාත්තා මාරේ තාත්තා බලමු. එයා නියම ගියොත් එහෙම රාජකම දාලා එයි. तो यहाँ वो एक एक चीज़ मैंने तेरे को यार फुल सब राइट मालिका तो ना फल लगी राइट एक टूल की सीधा कार्य है मैं मालिका ऊपर दे सामने की ओर पे तो बोले सामने सुरम में सुले गया मालिका तो ना फल राइट so that is how he managed the risk what he can't eliminate the risk कौन सा डाल दो तो अंतिम बेटर यार काम करते कर गया yeah like this right this can't eliminate what we can do we can mitigate no we can't mitigate somewhat we can mitigate what we can do we can manage we have to manage things we have to manage things we have to manage things if you are a business if you want to earn high return right definitely you have to take the risk risk करना तो कोई return नहीं क्या करना तो return नहीं करना so therefore you have to take the risk so what you can do is you need to manage the risk that's why we are discussing about the risk management how we are managing the risk the perspective of business now we go to सामान्य जीवित वो risk करना एक risk करना right इधर वो manage करना धीरे-धीरे उदाहरण विදිහට ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගෑනකට කැමති ගෑනකට කැමති කියන හැබැයි මේ ගෑනකට කැමති කියලා අහන්න යටි පොඩි රිස්ක් එකක් දෙනවට පේනවා රයිට් ගෑනකට අයියා කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා නැත්නම් තාත්තා පොලිසිය රයිට් පොඩි රිස්ක් එකක් දෙනවා කොහොමද ඔය මැනේජ් කරන්නේ කුටි කෑවොත් තනිය කුටි ගන්න බෑ යාළුවොත් එක්ක ගන්න මැනේජ් කරනවා දෙන්න ලයින් දෙක දෙක 50-50 in so that's how managing the risk day to day life risk is there right now we will know हम केंद्र में ला निदान तो हम किस risk के करना है केंद्र ला निदान की नाम हमारे केंद्र ही हमारे risk के करना है तो हम ये करना करते हैं बोलो the risk is there every time the risk is there right but if you want to earn the return you have to take the risk and it is like निदान टेबल और risk गाने नहीं तो वो return नहीं आते हैं but if you want to get the return out of the risk you have to take the risk so that's why because companies they are focusing on the return so they have to take the risk what they can do while taking the risk they have to manage the risk for the certain level acceptable level so we can't fully eliminate the risk right so that's why this in modern world of business we are discussing about the risk management right even the shareholders stakeholders are looking at how the companies are managing their risk as I told you before because if I am investing in a company I'm looking at the future of the company right so therefore one indicator that provides the future perspective is the risk management right they are telling that this kind of risk will come in future. So this is how we are managing. Even in the financial statements, they are providing the historical values. That is not very much important because it's gone already. In the financial statement, you are providing us something that is historical values. But as a shareholder, as an investor, what we are looking at, if I'm investing today, I know my return is coming at future. Right. So one indicator that futuristic indicator in the financial statement or the annual report is the risk management or the enterprise risk management policy of the company. Right. So that's why it is very important. This is a non-financial indicator that the stakeholders are looking at. The shareholders are looking at. So now people are moving towards non-financial indicators more than the financial indicators, as I mentioned before. I think you can remember. Right. So therefore, this risk management is very important discussion. Right. Very important discussion because it's very important to you all in your day-to-day business as well. Right. So in today's discussion, I'm focusing on 5 areas. Right. Introduction, meaning, definition of the risk management, and the risk management process. This is the most important discussion. So how we are managing the risk in the business. This is the process we need to follow. Right. Right. So this process is there in the annual report as well. Right. Annual report එකේ කියලා තියෙනවා මෙන්න මේ process එකෙන් අපි එක එක process එක මොනවද කරන්නේ. So therefore in your assignment, the first thing you have to do is you need to analyze the risk management process of the company. Right. Okay. Risk management approaches and the methods. How we are going to manage the risk. What are the methods available to manage the risk? කොහොමද අපි risk එක manage කරන්නේ? What are the methods? And how we are reporting the risk, because risk reporting is very important, right? Risk management, risk reporting process, right? And the risk organizations. So these are the 5 discussion points today, right? So first of all, I'm moving on to the definition, right? Right. So when you're looking at this picture, right, you can see one person is trying to jump into the other part, right? So what will happen? Then we are planning to move the way. Yeah, then I got to go and move the water. But it's not moving. Right. For the next time, please. What are they? Yes, right. There's a chance for getting failed or passed. We can call it as probability. Right? Somebody is going to figure. Maybe not go out to it. He may have or he may have. Right. So you can see risk management involves optimizing the expected return subject to the risk involved and risk tolerance. What that means? Risk management involves optimizing the expected return subject to the risk involved and risk tolerance. What do you mean by the risk management? Risk management කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? අපි try කරන්න ඕනේ optimize කරන return එක. පුළුවන් තරම් ලොකු return එකක් ගන්න ඕනේ. Right. risk එක අරගෙන risk එක tolerate කරන්න. ඒක තමයි risk management එකේ තාක්ෂණය. අපිට risk එක දෙනවා. මේ risk එකත් use කරලා අපිට risk එක tolerate කරලා අපිට පුළුවන් තරම් හොඳ return එකක් ගන්න එක තමයි අපි risk management කියලා කියන්නේ. Risk management involves optimizing the expected returns subject to the risk involved and risk tolerance. Risk tolerance. And the basically the risk is chance of lose or an unfavorable outcome associated with an action. That is, we call it as risk. If you are taking an action, that's why I told you the companies have to take the risk. Right? If you are involved in the action, then there will be a kind of chance of loss or unfavorable outcome. हमारे एक्शन ने करो देंगे बार chance का तीनों unfavorable outcome है कि ना तो आप लोग ने मान के for example पास में लोग फेल करते हैं. क्या तो लोग हैं ना ये तो नहीं होता. Right. Right. So when you're looking at for each decision, there is a risk return trade-off. What do you mean by risk return trade-off? Well, the risk return trade-off. What do you mean by risk return trade-off? There will be a trade-off between the risk and return. But if you are taking high risk, you can earn high return. Right. If you are not taking risk, you don't get return. Right? So that we call it as trade-off. Risk and return trade. Anytime there is a possibility of loss risk, there should be an opportunity for profit. Right? Right. If you are taking what you call if you are taking a risk, right, there is an opportunity of getting profit. But if you are going to have a opportunity of profit like that. So that we call it as risk return trade. Risk return trade. Greater the uncertainty, greater the risk. Uncertainty value in the risk value. Uncertainty value in the risk value. Now, we're going to mark again uncertainty at the honor. You can work in risk value. Right. So that's example here. Network article or uncertainty. You pass it and see. You can work in risk value. Risk value. Yang bisa dia kena uncertain lah. Kita nak bagi risk ke apa? The company ka decision kati, decision ni sama sama uncertainty very. There will be definitely risk. For example, if you are going to do an acquisition of a company, right? You are having a kind of uncertainty that this company will make profit in future. So therefore, there is a definitely high risk. So therefore, when it comes to risk management, the risk management involves you have to look at this sort of thing, optimizing the expected return while you are having the risk and the tolerance. Tolerance means risk tolerance can be what? Having a levels of tolerance level here. The risk getting for example, when it comes to companies, so if you analyze the companies, different companies having different tolerance level. For example, BSAA is having a kind of a high tolerance level because they are kind of big company. They are having so much of subsidiaries, so they can tolerate the risk to such level. So therefore, they can take kind of a high risk. And for example, one individual company, right, who is working in a field, Colombo stock exchange, so they can't tolerate much. Right. So therefore, when you are optimizing return, so you need to look at your risk tolerance level. Right. So the risk management, definitely the trade-off is there. Make a clear balancing part here. Right. Company का decisions करती, risk के भी हम वाला decisions करते हैं हम वाला अपने company का tolerate कराना शुरू होते हैं risk level of tolerance. That is only that risk management तो अभी बोलना नहीं, हमारी optimize करनी है. Optimize करना हो ना, अब आप वाला तो अपने दारागिरी भी है क्या वो मानती ना optimize करें. उदाहरण के लिए वाला exam करना kalau ada kita akan tahu bahwa kembali ada guru syllabus itu paling kali kalau guru kami ini ada nah itu betul so even though you have an idea to optimize the return you must tolerate likewise when it comes to companies also different companies having different toleration level so therefore based on that you have to optimize the return so that we call it as risk management. Risk management involves the optimizing expected return subject to risk involved and the risk tolerance. Sometimes today we are having a different risk, but in next day we have a different risk. Right? Based on that also we need to decide the risk optimization or the return optimization. Sorry. Right. Because risk management is a more product. Risk management it's a very difficult task. Right. There is a separate individual to do this risk management in every distance. Right. Risk management is a party, some committees, board committees. Companies perspective every time the risk is changing. For example, we are having master program, right? That master program is online. right? Everyone can do online, the pay, what do you call the examination also online, right? So we are using a proctoring system. Proctoring system that use the exam maker. And the best copy right? The proctoring system make pay ne mema. After all, individual go screen එක බලන්න. යාන වෙන screens වලට යන්නද. ඊට පස්සේ ඕන අපිට කැමති නම් යාගේ රූම් එක ස්කෑන් කරන්න පුළුවන්. සමහර කට්ටිය ඉස්සරහින් ස්කෑන් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් රූම් එක ස්කෑන් කරලා ඒක ඔබස්ටෝල් එකත් එක 1-to-1 chat එක දාන්න පුළුවන්. කතා කරන තුන යා කතා කරනවා. යා මූව් වෙනවා නම් අපිට නැවිගේෂන් මේ පේජ් එකේ පෙන්නනවා යා මොකද මූව් වෙන්නේ. ඔයාලා යනවා. යා එකපාරට නැතිවොත් දැන් කකල ගෙදර කියන කාපට් දුර ගිහලා නෝට්ස් එක ගන්න පුළුවන්. right? ඒක ඔක්කොම ඉන්ඩිකේට්. But this year, what we have found is that some students using some third-party softwares. Right? That third-party software can break the proctoring system. A third-party software install කරලා පස්සේ proctoring system එක දාලා වැඩක් නෙගොට ඕන දෙයක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. So that's why the risk is there. Risk is there for us. They are risky that Malaysia you proctoring system is. What happened to the risk now? So likewise in business also, every time the risk will be changed because we are living volatile environment. Available with an and okay, the given thing, the risk available. The risk management task, company risk management, the master are being a task, very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. So therefore, the risk management process is kind of ongoing process. Then other one risk management again process make run kara. Then company out of the company किसी risk tag का निदान करता है. हमारा उद्देश्य अलग risk tag क्या है? अभी दांडा उद्देश्य COVID-19 ना अभी और मुझे नहीं किसी COVID-19 antigen test करा. Yeah, the risk change है. So हरी हमारे में risk management task है. Very difficult to do. Right. Right. So risk management. What do you mean by risk management? The process of identifying, assessing, and controlling threats to an organization, capital, and earnings. That's a kind of a basic definition. What do you mean by risk management? The first part we have to do, we need to identify the risk. Right? We need to identify the what are the risk and what are the risk management. Right? Okay, company can be a risk. Then only we can manage the risk. Right? Then assessing the risk. After identifying the risk, we need to assess whether it's a high risk, whether it's a low risk, whether it's a medium risk. We need to assess the level of the risk. Right? Risk का identify करेगा था. It was a problem to risk के level लेकर बात. एक मात्र वायान का risk का था. एक मात्र level level लेकर risk का. एक मात्र risk का आहुत है. So then we need to control the risk. We need to follow the strategies to control it. So under the risk management, what we can do? We can't eliminate, we can't mitigate. What we can do? We can control to a certain level or acceptable level. Right. So if you are a business, you need to manage your risk for acceptable level. Acceptable level like the management of risk. We have to hold it. Company is difficult. Or a company can now. A company take risk of manage current. Or a company can save nothing. What is it? Because the has a rule of quantum manage current. Control current risk. Right? So when it comes to risk, as I told you, it's a kind of process. It's a process. Make a process. Right? So you need to identify, assess, and control. Right? Example like right? So again, I mean, in Yalun, the one we will have the risk identify risk. එයාට කලින් එයාට ඒක කවුරුයි නැත්නම් තාත්තයි නැත්නම් කවුරුයි අයියා කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. So those are the risks. Identify the risk. Right. Then assess them. අයියා නම් කවුරු ගන්න අයියා කෙට්ටෝයි වැඩි උසස් නැහැ මට ඉවාවුත් උඩ ගහන්න පුළුවන්. කවුරු ගන්න. Assessing the risk low level risk. තාත්තා පොලිසිය අහුනොත් උරුලා high risk. Right. Right. Likewise, you can assess the risk, the level of the risk. So then, based on the level of the risk, you need to control. What is your high risk money? Yeah, thought they will not have any action. Right? Good. I think. I get out and I low risk. That is how we are controlling the risk. In the business also, we need to follow different strategies, right, to manage them, right. So these threats or risks could stem from wide varieties of sources, right. There are many companies who are sources in the few examples. Financial uncertainties can be there, right. Legal liabilities, right. Financially, after loss, right. Legal liabilities in the law. සමහරලාට ලෝ කේස් එකක් ෆයිල් කරලා තියෙනවා. right ලෝ කේස් එකක් ෆයිල් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒක high risk එකක්. right then strategic management errors, right, management is taking some decisions that will not go in a good way, right. So management is going to implement a new product, so that is not good product to go. Strategic management errors can be there. Accident and natural disasters, right, like COVID-19, like natural disasters are coming up, and IT security threats and data related risks. So those are few examples of which the companies have. Right. Great companies only PLC companies are going to value things like ERS framework value they are going to pay or economic deal company wise වෙනස් වෙනවා. දැන් උදාහරණයකට ලංකාවේ ඇතුළේ විතරක් වැඩ කරන companies වලට කවරෙස් රිස්ක් ගන්න නැහැ. මේ පිටරටත් එක්ක වැඩ කරන කම්පැනි කවරෙස් රිස්ක් ගන්න. අනේ. ඒ companies වල කියන එක රිස්ක්. ඉකොනොමික් රිස්ක් එක හැම company එකකම. අපි දැන් රිස්ක් එක කතා කරද්දී රිස්ක් එක තව අපි වර්ග වලටත් කතා කරන්න ඉස්සරහ. ස්ට්‍රැටජික් රිස්ක්, බිස්නස් රිස්ක්, ඔපරේෂන් රිස්ක්. Right. So that is how we are managing the risk. So when you are managing the risk, right? So these are the definitions of risk. And I'm not going to go with this definition because it's not very much important. I will go with one, right? So managing the risk can involve taking out insurance against a loss, hedging a loan against interest rate rise, and protecting an investment against falling interest rates. Likewise, we can, in a different angles, we can define the risk. Right. So when it comes to this, two things very important, right? The traditional view of risk management has been one of the protecting the organization from loss through transformation procedures and the hedging techniques. That's the traditional view. But now the new approach to risk management is about to seek in the upside while managing the downside. What I mean by that? ඉස්සර අපි traditional view එකේදී companies risk management කියලා කරේ. Right? පුළුවන් තරම් hedge කරනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි පුළුවන් තරම් risk එක පැනලා යනවා වෙන්නේ. risk එකක් තියෙනවා නම් පොඩ්ඩක් ඒකෙන් අයින් වෙලා ඉන්නවා වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි new දැන් modern business, right? ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා approach එක. ඔයගොල්ලෝ risk එක ගත්තේ නැත්නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට return එකක් නැහැ. You're not getting a return. So therefore, they are looking at the risk. What they are doing in the risk management, seeking the upside while managing the downside. What do you mean by that? Seeking the upside while managing the downside. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Upside and downside is seeking the upside while managing the downside. So when it comes to risk, we can divide into two parts. Basically, downside risk and the upside risk. downside risk means what? The risk එක cover කරන්නේ. ඒ risk එක නිසා අපිට downside issues එනවා. නැත්නම් risk එක නිසා අපිට අලාභ වෙන දේවල් වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපි ඒක කියනවා downside effect එක. සමහර risk එක නිසා අපිට upside opportunities එනවා. risk එක නිසා සමහරවිට opportunities එන්න පුළුවන්. COVID-19 කියන risk එකක්. natural disaster එකක්. COVID-19 නිසා සමහර companies වල downside risk එකක් එනවා. හැබැයි සමහර companies වල upside risk එකක් එනවා. upside කියන්නේ risk එක යා convert කරන opportunity එක. For example, the Lanka, so they have converted that COVID-19 to the opportunity. That's a lazy for them, but they have taken the opportunity from it. They have made some gloves and all. High sales in Lanka. Traditional approach is the mind. Thank you. Hedging techniques use करते हैं. लेकिन अभी पूरा तरह risk के hedge करेगा तो try करें. अबे इधर कंपेयर हुआ पूरा तरह try करना risk के गन risk का आ रहा है ना ये risk के लिए ना downside risk का manage करना का upside risk की opportunity का. बैंक ने दिए तो इलाज वो the risk के हमें होती है ना तो banking companies modern business what they are doing they are taking the risk after taking the risk they are looking at the upside and downside to the upside they are taking opportunities from the downside they are going to manage it right so that is the new approach of risk management this is the most important discussion right it will be there in your examination as risk management process. How we are going to manage this? How we are going to manage this? The way we are going to manage this. So when you are analyzing the annual reports, so they have highlighted this risk management process. They are telling you this is how we are identifying the risk. This is how we are assessing the risk. This is how we are addressing the risk. Right. So this process they are going with. Right. The first one is establishment of the context, right? Right. Establishment of the context, right? What do you mean by establishment of the context? Context means you need to understand the environment you're working on. As I told you before, every business having different sort of environment. For example, as a group of company, your teams having different business organization, business environment. Right? And when it comes to the subsidiary company of JKH, Union Insurance, or the Cinnamon Group is having a different environment. But उदाहरण है JKH Group के अंदर वेरिकुलर लोकल रिस्क क्या कौन लेना है टूरिज्म नहीं होने JKH Group के अंदर अब ऐसे ना तो JKH Group के लिए subsidiary group का तब एक Cinnamon Group Cinnamon Hotels तो regular tourism नहीं होने से risk क्या right right that's the risk for this right so therefore first of all the company needs to understand the environment what they are working on before doing the risk management only for that I got no මොනවා වගේ environment එකදී group of company කරනවා වා ගොඩක් වෙලාවට diversify කරලා තියෙනවා so ඔයගොල්ලෝ assignment එක කරද්දී ඔයා මුලින්ම බලන්න ඕනේ company එක කියලා තියෙන දේ හරි ඔයා බලන්න ඕනේ company එකේ කියලා තියෙන environment එක හරිද මේ වගේ environment එක තමයි ඒගොල්ලෝ work කරන්නේ right the සමහර companies IT based environment එක work කරනවා සමහර companies සාමාන්‍ය local market එකේ වැඩ කරනවා සමහර companies government එකට supply කරන විතරයි ඒගොල්ලෝ සමහර company exports කරන විතරයි context is different. So then you have to look at what kind of environment this company is working. So that's what we call that establish the purpose of this stage of planning enables to understand the environment in which the respective organization operates. That means the truly understand the external environment and the external culture of the organization. Right? You cannot resolve a risk if you do not know that it is. At the initial stage, it is necessary to establish the context of the risk. To establish the context, there is a need to collect relevant data. There is a need to map the scope of the risk and objective of the organization. Right? So first of all, what you have to do under the risk management policy, you need to understand the business, understand the environment of the business. Now you know the environment of the business. For example, JK, it's a diversified organization, diversified group of company, right? So they have diversified their risk. So now you know this is the JKH. This is the business environment of the JKH. Right? So with that viewpoint, we need to go to the next one, the identification of risks. Right? Well, after identifying the environment, you need to identify what are the risks you are having within this environment. Identification part. Very important. Risk එක identify කරේ නැත්නම් ඒක තමයි original ලොකුම risk එක. Right. දැන් මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ example එක වගේ ගන්න මම කැමති කියලා අහන්න ඇති. ඔයා identify කරගන්න නැහැ. යාට පොලිසිය වැඩ කරලා තාත්තා කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. මොකද වෙන්නේ ඕන? ඒ වැඩේ කරන්න කියලා මොකද ඔයාව සමන් කිරිය දාන්න. මොකද environment එක හරියට analyze කරලා නැහැ. තා risk එක identify කරලා නැහැ. Right. So if you are a company, likewise if you are a company, if you are not identifying the risk you are having, that is the biggest risk you are having. So therefore this process you need to go with kind of with the kind of attention. So therefore there are a separate person to do this, separate risk management officer in every business to do this. Identifying risk is crucial. It's the foundation of risk management. Preventing major losses is done well. Focus on the problems. Identify the potential problem or their sources to understand associated risks. Right. Right. සමහර වෙලාවට අපිට risk එක පේන්න හැබැයි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. Right. ප්‍රශ්නයක් දෙන උදාහරණයක් විදිහට employee කෙනෙක් අපිට විරුද්ධව company එකට විරුද්ධව law case එකක් ෆයිල් කළා. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න නිසා අපිට එන්න පුළුවන් risk මොනවද? Associate risk we need to identify in this stage. If there is a problem in the company, for example, the government will issue a kind of a regulation next year. So that's a kind of problem to us. So within that context, you need to identify the risk. Right. Good job. Right. Then comprehensive knowledge needed. Assess the organization, market, legal, social environment, finance, and operations to effectively identify this. So when you are doing the identification part, you need to have the required knowledge. Right. Government legal case එක ෆයිල් කරලා දිනවා කියලා හිතන්න ඕක. ඒක ඔයා දන්නේ නැත්නම් මේ legal case එකෙන් impact එක මොකක්ද කියලා. මේ legal case එක මොන level එකේ තියෙන කියන එක understand කරන්න ඕන බැරි නම්. So you can't do the risk identification part. If you don't know about the financial reporting framework, if you don't know about the standards, so you can't see the problem in the financial statement. You can't identify the risk in the financial statement. If you don't know about the economic factor, you can't identify the economic risk. So likewise, to identify the risk, so you need to have the knowledge. Right. Comprehensive knowledge needed. And there are multiple techniques available to identify the risk. Different techniques are there. The risk identify කරගන්න එක එක විදිහයි. එකක් තමයි brainstorm. But again, ඔලේ කාල්පල බලන්න. Brainstorm. You can ask for some experts. So let's say you don't have a knowledge about the legal aspects, right? You can consult with the legal officer, right? So this kind of problem is there, right? What is the effect? What is the impact, right? And interviews, you can conduct interviews with the employees or the external parties, right? You can have the interviews and take some their ideas. Identify the risk. And you can have the checklist. Right. For example, in your internal control, there will be an issue. Because of that, there will be a risk of cyber security. So what you can do is you can check your internal controls by using a checklist. Right. Scenario analysis. Right. Scenario analysis. What do you mean by scenario analysis? Because the scenario is described. When the Buddha they will analyze. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට දැන් මම ගෑනලමයි යාළුවෙන් දානවා සිනාරියෝ කීපයක් ඇනලයිස් කරනවා. ඒ ගෑනලමයි අයියත් එක්ක ආවොත් මම මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒ ළමයා අත්තත් එක්ක ආවොත් මම මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒ ළමයා තනියෙන් ආවොත් මම මොකද කරන්නේ? The different scenarios. For example, if you are implementing a new product, right? You can have a different scenarios. If you sell this product for rupees 100, what kind of scenarios? 150, what kind of scenario? If you are selling this as a one product, what kind of scenario? So based on the scenario analysis, we can identify the different risks. Scenario analysis. Clear? Then direct observations. Malangilla, risk identifying flow. Right? Observe the right. Observe the versus risk identifying flow. So when you analyze when you are observing, so we can identify the risk identifier observing. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔයගොල්ලෝ එක්සෑම් එකේ යද්දී අපිට තියෙන රිස්ක් එක මොකද්ද? PM සෙටර්ස්ලා ඉන්ජිනියර් තියෙන රිස්ක් එක තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ කොපි කරන්නේ. දැන් මේක කියන කොපි කරන එක. ඒක තමයි අපි ඉන්විජිලේටර්ස් වල දාන්නේ. යන්නේ එහෙම වෙන්නේ. ඒක එක්සෑම් එකේ. එතකොට ඒක මොකද කරන්නේ? ඔබ්සර්වේෂන්, ඩිරෙක්ට් ඔබ්සර්වේෂන්. ඩිරෙක්ට් ඔබ්සර්වේෂන්. And incident analysis, the same thing like that, right? Survey, you can do a survey, right? Like you can do a survey, and various other methods can be used, right? So this is how you need to identify this, right? So identification part is very crucial. If you are not identifying the correct risk, then it will be a bigger risk goal, right? For that you need to have knowledge, right? If you don't have knowledge, you can do some different things. You can have some different techniques. So these are some techniques you can identify the risks, right? So this is the risk identification part. So in the annual report also, if you are reviewing the annual report, they will tell you what is the method they have captured the risk, right? You know, කොහොමද කරේ scenario analysis කරලාද brainstorming කරලාද incentives කරලාද මේ risk එක identify කරගන්න කියලා කියනවා. Right. Then, so after identifying the risk, now I have identified these are my risks. Where are my risks? Mana kali kita apa ya? Context environment yang ada di kata, itu pasti abi risk yang identify kerana benda dia apa risky. Dia semua katakan, assess kerana. Apa risk dia kan mereka video background ni. When it comes to the recognition, today definitely to be play. Why? So they have identified the risk. Bangladesh has identified the risk. So definitely there will be another response coming up. Right. Right. They have identified the risk. So after identifying this risk, they have assessed the risk. What are the risks? Right. One of the risks, right? Assess the risk. Right. Whether this risk is high risk or low risk. Right. High risk or low risk. अभी assess करा, तो हमारे risk के कितना एक काम किया back करना है. हमारे तो एक किया back करना है. एक playground का काम ना कोई नहीं. Right. Cricket match का तो एक लोग match के लेने का analyze करना. यार दान को goal ya analyze itu lalu kalau figure macam ni, itu itu plan kan, tapi ada kan kalau itu ada kan, biar mana defender, ada orang mana, kalau itu orang kan dia kan, dia di dalam kan, ya assess kalau itu, kalau itu orang itu baik, ya baik. Right. So that is why Srilanka is coming up. Srilanka knows they are following that thing. Right. So they are coming with the left arm. Assessing the risk. Because they are having Sri Lanka is having a high risk that Bangladesh is not playing for the one is husband. They are not taking risk against one is husband. So they are taking another spinner that who can win lot the ball because they become goal involved in other spin. Like the straight ball. So that's how we are assessing the risk. Identify the high and the low risk when it comes to governments. දැන් කම්පැනි එකට අපි මේක රිස්ක් අයිඩෙන්ටිෆයි කරාට පස්සේ අපි බලන්නේ කම්පැනි එකේ තියෙන රිස්ක් එක හයිද ලෝද කියලා. හැම එකටම එකම විදිහට බැට් කරන්නේ නැහැ. හැම එකටම එකම විදිහට සොලියුෂන්ස් දෙන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. Based on the level only we need to provide solution. That is why we need to assess the risk. So when you are assessing the risk, right, we are using a technique, evaluate the likelihood and the impact. So we call it as risk mapping. Right. Risk map. Likelihood dekkai impact dekkai බලන්න. ඔය likelihood එකේ possibility එක වෙන්න පුළුවන් possibility. ඒක උනාට පස්සේ එන impact. හරි අපි හිතමු possibility එක වැඩි. අපේ impact එක අඩු. හැම වෙලේම මේක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේක risk එකක් තියෙනවා. අපේ impact එක අඩුයි. Then we are using different approach. If the likelihood is lower, but impact is higher. When the class combined the value, have it lower value impact. So then we have to follow a different approach to manage. So therefore, when assessing the risk, we need to look at the likelihood and the impact. Assess the both of the potential loss impact and the chance of them happening. The likelihood. Likelihood and the impact. Right. Focus on prioritization. So based on that, you need to look at you need to prioritize the risk. Only we understand no risk. What the highest risk problem? Prioritize that. One of the urgently approach to no risk. Right. You need to prioritize the risk. They help determine which risk require the most urgent attention in your risk management plan. Risk management plan. Estimating the likelihood can be challenging. The likelihood කියන එක estimate කරන්න ගොඩක් challenging. Right? මේක සිද්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන් සම්භාව්‍ය possibility එක, probability එක. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අර හම්බුනාට වත්ත. දැන් මේ හම්බුනානේ lottery එකක් fill කරන්න. ලංකාවේ මොකද අවුරුදු 500 කට විතර පස්සේ තමයි ඒක රජකාරන්ට පස්සේ තමයි ඒක හම්බුලා තියෙන්නේ. सामने हम पे नहीं क्यों? ये तो लोग ये एनालाइज कर लो बोलो सामने वार दिनों मारा पंद्रह का हाइडर का वार तुम्हें को हम पे दिनों वार करे था आदि रहते आधे आधे नहीं पंद्रह हाइडर पर ओए सामने रह बिलाप का हाथ लगा दिखा दिया सैना काले में कुछ तो नहीं कर बिलाप से कोटी हासिल पर तो जाएगा थी अंडे उधर में लाइक्लीहुड तक මේ වගේ මේක වැලියු එකක් නැති එකක් රිස්ක් එක කියන්නේ වැලියු එකක් නැහැ වැලියු එකක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ it's a kind of a actual so it's very difficult to decide the likelihood ඒ වගේ කියන්න බෑ මේක වෙයිද නොවේද කියලා very difficult to do right දැන් මේ ගෑනම තාත්තත් එක්ක වෙයිද කියලා කියන්න බෑ තමයි likelihood දැන් හැම වෙලේම යා එක ප්‍රැක්ටිස් එකක් විදිහට කරනවා නම් හරි likelihood එක වැඩි so මේ determining the likelihood is very challenging task for companies. Because this is very important because based on the likelihood and the impact only we are providing solutions. So therefore the likelihood, decided likelihood is very important. The likelihood එක impact එකයි මත තමයි අපි decide කරන්නේ මොකද්ද solution එක. So මේ likelihood එක අපි decide කරනවා හරියට. ඒක very challenging task එක. Right? There may not be perfect data on how often certain events occur. Use informed judgment when necessary. Right? In Sri Lankan context, it's very difficult to do this. The likelihood analysis is very difficult because we don't have data. If you are going to do a research in Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to do because we don't have data in Sri Lanka. Right? There are both the research and data. और तरह की जैसी चैप्टर की तरह लिया गया थी डेटा ने हमारे सुविधा आए मेरा टॉपिक क्या था आज में डेटा अवेलेबिलिटी का नया आया डेटा ने quantify risk when possible. A common formula quantifies the likelihood by the impact to get a risk score, helping prioritizing the action. So try to give some value to the risk. Quantify it. Because as I mentioned before, the risk is We can't quantify. But if possible, try to quantify this. So how we can quantify this is we can have a kind of a matrix like likelihood and impact. Right? Likelihood එක වැඩි කරලා impact එක නම් එකක් ගන්නකො. Likelihood එක වැඩි නම් 5යි. Impact එක වැඩි නම් 5යි. 5 වැඩි කිරීම 5 25. Likelihood එක අඩුයි නම් 1යි. Impact එක අඩුයි නම් 1යි. එක වැඩි කිරීම එක 1යි. එතකොට 25 දින risk එක තමයි වැඩි risk. Like we can give the value. We will discuss this again. Risk management, the risk maps, we will discuss. Right. So assess the third process. Right. Assessment of this. We need to decide what is the level of the risk, whether it's high risk, low risk, or medium risk. Right. Based on the likelihood and the impact analysis. Right. Now, these are the treatments, the fourth one. Or we can say strategies, how we can treat the risk, how we can address the risk. For example, if you have a risk, right? Then our one calling you the right? Then you can get a very ask out right? So the gallery ask out can the element no local risk like should expect if I got those them. ළමයි තාත් එක්ක තමයි යන්නේ. right. So තාත් එක්ක එtti මම යාගේ නාස්ක අවුට් කරනවා කියොත් මට ඉර යන්න තියෙන chance එක වැඩි. So likelihood and the impact is very high. So now we are having a high risk. Right? I'm having a high risk. What we can do? What we can do? So one risk treatment. Avoid. මම ඊළඟ නාස්ක අවුට් කරන්නේ නැහැ. Right. That is the one method. For example, when it comes to business, right? If you are going to acquire a business, right? So you are deciding to acquire a business. So after analyzing this company, so you can see in the future this company is making losses. There's a high likelihood, and the impact is also high. So then what we can do? We can refuse the proposal to acquire that company. One risk treatment method is avoid. We can avoid it. Risk is the avoid the avoid can. But when it comes to most of the business, they are not following this one. Why? Because in the today's approach is we are taking the risk. Right? Avoid करने का लोगों the strategy का नहीं. Based on the risk, if it is a risk is high, then we can like you and the risk is high, we can avoid. Right? දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා අද සැප් එකේ ලෙක්චර්ස් આવුත් යන අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම සැප් බිල්ඩින් එක කඩ ගන්නවා. high likelihood is there, high risk is there. කඩ ගන්නකොට කරනවා. ඒක මොකද ඒක තියෙන්නේ. avoid. Right, avoid this. Right. Right. Then transferring the risk. That's another strategy. What are you going to transfer it? Transfer the risk. දැන් ඔයා දන්නවා කියන්නේ තාක්ෂණත් එක්කම හිටිය කියලා. දැන් රිස්ක් එක හයි. likelihood එක impact එක. තමයි ගන්න. ඊළඟට ඔයා මොකද කරන්නේ? යාළුවෝ නේද මම මම අර ගෑනලා කරගෙන යනස්තක් තියෙනවා. පොඩ්ඩක් පොඩ ගිහලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් රිස්ක් එක transfer කරනවා. Risk එක transfer. So when it comes to the businesses, the insurance is the example of this. We are transferring our risk to the insurance companies. For example, if you are in a vehicle, you can insure your company, insure a vehicle. Accident process, make a give. Lanka insurance company name. We do that. Lanka go name. And they go on. Whether you are the license. Premium pay card, no only given. Right, now you are not them. Titanic. We want them insurance. The insurance company transferring the risk. Insurance companies also transferring their risk. You know, the unit insurance is insured in a different other insurance companies. Not in Sri Lanka, but in the foreign countries. Because they also have a risk. Suddenly, if something happens, so they have to pay a lot of money. So therefore, they also insure. Transfer in their insurance companies also reinsured. Right. प्रतिराक्षणे करोति. So therefore the transfer risk is happening. Right? One strategy is risk transferring. Right? One strategy is risk transferring. If you have the risk, you can transfer that risk. Right? Transfer that risk. Then retention. What do you mean by retention? Retention. Divided. Dealing. Retention. Risk yang awalnya. Risk yang utara. Overall business करते क्या लगे हम यार किसी को retention क्या करो retention जब risk क्या देखो retention strategy कौन if you have a risk what is the retention the severe word to retention is taking. For example, you are having a future risk. So you can have a some savings to deal with that. Retain some money. Right? Retention. Retention. Risk का क्या होना? Risk का address करना अधिकतम left है. Retention. Then sharing. What is my sharing? Transferring and sharing is two different. Then summer का क्या वाला example के लिए insurance क्या है sharing. Sharing मतलब transferring क्या? Transferring क्या अभी risk का क्या देना? Total risk I will give to the insurance. But sharing is what? 50-50 25-75. Yes, share the risk. Sharing the risk. Insurance कराना तो 100% अभी insurance है पर we that insurance गलत नहीं होना बिजली की यार का सारा का तो दे दो ये बिजली का दादा का insurance करके और थोड़ा insurance करके तो रे अभी ट्रांसफर करना क्या अभी किसी का साथ होकर पहले क्या कर देना insurance के लिए नहीं कार का insurance करने के ना फंस गया थर्ड पार्टी यार मतलब insurance है कर दिया ना वाई बार गया होते हैं यार हम कर रहे थे तो मैं इसका है ना वाई बार गया मतलब और इसके ना बुला रहा हम कर रहे हैं और इसके ट्रांसफर कर दिया अब चार कितने बोले 50-50 75-25 और इसके को ब्याज कम नहीं हमारे इंश्योरेंस में ना बुला को आता है शेयरिंग करने में बुला हमारी जो हमारे थर्ड पार्टी इंश्योरेंस है तो that will coming up to sharing under sharing third party का कितना ही करती वहाँ लगा this is sharing American most of the companies they are not carrying the third party insurance companies they are kind of insurance so they are dealing with transfer okay sharing one of the examples of sharing of this sharing और इसके sharing an example given बात है आप देखिए थी वहीं था याद हुई तो शेयर करेगा दिन तो किधर करेगा शेयर करेगा तो लिखता है अब उनको आउना पड़ कर लेना इसके शेयर what is the question what are the examples companies share yes correct yes what are the examples yes what are the examples so share okay let's go with companies companies को share Yes. You can do the amalgamations, right? You can acquire the company. You can have some amalgamations. For example, Sri Lanka Telecom, right? Sri Lanka Telecom amalgamate with mortgage, right? Right. So now, what is the new name? Mobitel or something like that. The telecom right? Mobitel right? SLT Mobitel. So now this is card. So one technique is you can amalgamate or you can do some acquisition. Right. You can share the risk. Right. You can share the risk. Previously, I own 100% of the shares. Right. So now I have divided into someone else. Right. 50-50. So now the risk is shared. This share. Right. How many of them share risk? You can list in the Colombo stock exchange. That's also sharing the risk. Right. Well, previously, for example, PP, PVC is a private limited company. So now they have issued some shares to the general public. So now the risk is transferred to the general public as well. Right. Sharing. Right. The listing also one technique. You can do the sharing of the risk. Right. Right. Then loss prevention and reduction. Loss prevention and reduction. What do you mean by that? What is the difference between the avoidance and the loss prevention? Avoidance can but the loss prevention yes, but we take a because exactly the loss prevention and reduction and the avoidance. In the avoidance, we are not taking the risk. We are not going to take risk. If there is a risk, do level, find level, in that. We are going on that. Right. Avoidance. What do you call a loss reduction and the prevention? I can now loss I can see a risk. So I try to minimize the risk for the certain level, acceptable. Or reduce the risk to the third level. So what are the strategies we can follow in the business to reduce the risk? Consolidation. How? So we can consult with the kind of expert about the business. Business environment and management business environment. That's one way. Yeah. Yes, what are the strategies we can follow? Let's say you are established business now. What are the strategies? Definitely yes. Controls. Right. You can have the internal controls. Through the internal controls, you can minimize the faults. Internal controls is one strategy. Reduce the concern level. They are going to take the method. Doctor can get a thing. I will say, after they go after you go. Take a letter, even the letter in the California. You are the Adu. I would have for them a base board. Control board. And the control formation free. They will get up to the end and receive one phase one strategy. Right. So when you analyze the BSAA company, you can see they are using different strategies. So then you can categorize them into these categories. Someone able to identify the framework analyze able to highlight the risk. Future risk. The company got maybe one risk. Company got a computer risk. So strategies. People will be in the name of the product. To complete the address. There is a strategy. So this is coming under one of these strategies. Right. So this is how we are creating the risk. Right. We are creating the identifying, assessing, after assessing the risk, how we are going to treat the risk. These are the methods we can use. These are the strategies. Right. When it comes to the different businesses, they are having different strategies within this 5 common strategies. Right. That's maintain strategies. පහ ඇතුලේ ඒගොල්ලෝ එක එක ඒගොල්ලන්ට අනන්‍ය වුණු එක එක strategies තියෙනවා. සමහර companies internal controls තියෙනවා, සමහර companies insurance තියෙනවා, සමහර companies third party insurance තියෙනවා, sharing තියෙනවා. සමහර company ඒගොල්ලෝ bulk එකක් තියන් ඉන්න පුළුවන්, retention එකක් තියන් ඉන්න පුළුවන්, අදිසි අවස්ථා contingency එක. සමහර companies risk එක ගන්න නැතුව ඉන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක ඒගොල්ලෝ කියනවා මෙතන මේ වගේ අපි company එකක amalgamation එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ඒක නිසා අපිට ඉස්සරහ loss එකක් එනවා. ඒ නිසා අපි ඒ amalgamation එක නැති කරනවා. avoid කරනවා. සමහර companies කියනවා අපිට logistics පැත්තෙන් impact එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපේ logistics එක කරන්නේ third party එකක්. ඒගොල්ලෝ අපිව දාලා ඉන්න තියෙන නිසා මම logistics company එකක amalgamate කරනවා. Right. So there are the risks. ඔය වගේ ලොජිස්ටික් මගේ කම්පැනි එකේ ලොජිස්ටික් පාර්ට් එක කරන්නේ අවුට්සෝසින් කම්පැනි. අපි ඒක පොසිබිලිටි එකක් තියෙනවා මේ කම්පැනි කඩ ගන්න. ඒතර ඒ කම්පැනි කඩ ගන්නකොට අපි බිස්නස් එක කඩ ගන්න. ඒ නිසා අපි මොකද කරන්නේ? අමල්ගමේට් කරලා. කියන්නේ කියන්නේ අවුට්සෝසින් කම්පැනි. sorry logistic company. That is a strategy. Understood? Right. So likewise, when it comes to business, there are different risks and they are using different strategies. The strategies so home in the way for how to do it. Right. Then review and evaluation of the plan. Right. So this is the process. Right. When you are looking at this risk management, you can see this is the process. Right. So we are starting with this identifying the context, identification, assessment, treatment, and the final part, the review and evaluation. Again, we have to start with this one. This is a kind of a ongoing process. Risk management. एक नाम के ओपन रिस्क के मैनेज कर लगे तो किला इंदार की सब है. बेटा बेटी आए अपने एक्सपेक्टिंग. ये वो आए मेगा प्रॉब्लम आते. This is a process. That's why we call it as a process. Ongoing process. Right. Review and evaluation of the plan. Plans are living documents. Plan එකක් කියන්නේ ජීවන්ත document එක. Plan එකක් කියන අනිවාර්යයෙන් ඒකට තියෙන්න ඕන life එකක්. ඕන plan එකක් කරලා දිනනවා නම් plan එක date plan එකක් වෙන්න බෑ. Live living documents. Right. They can සක්‍රිය වෙලා තියෙනවා. Always. Right. Expected to update your risk management plan as you gain experience and encounter real world situation. Right. With the time being, you are getting a different experience, different situations are coming. So based on that, you need to update your plan. Right. Update your risk management process. Right. There are two main reasons to update your plan. Control effectiveness, ensure your chosen security controls are still working as intended. Business changes account for how your business evolves, potentially introducing new risks. Be aware of dynamic risks. Some risks can accelerate quickly if not monitoring and addressed. Right. So therefore, you need to have this review and evaluation plan. Right. Even though you have identified, even though you assess, you are having the risk rate, but again the new risk is coming up. Sometimes you have the identifying risk can be changed. Right. Then අපි identify කරගත්තා අපි business එක අපිට පාඩම කියලා අපි එකකින් operate කරනවා. හැබැයි එකපාර market එක වෙනස් වෙලා දැන් ඒක වාසි වෙනවා. So we have to review and revisit the plan. So then again we have to go that cycle. Review and monitor. So these are the 5 steps or 5 stages we need to follow when you are doing the risk management. So this is very important. This is there in the annual reports as they have mentioned about this process. They are mentioning how they have identified the risk, how they have established the risk, how they have identified this, how they have assessed the risk using the risk maps and the heat maps, and how they are addressing the risk or how they are treating the risk or other strategies. And also how they are again to how they are relieving the risk evaluation plan. Right. Understood? Is it clear? Clear? So ඔයගොල්ලෝ assignment එකේ පළවෙනි task එක තමයි ඒ company එකේ risk management process එක identify කරගන්න. මොනවාගේ process එකද ඒගොල්ලෝ follow කරන්නේ? මේ process එක තමයි follow කරන්නේ මොන විදිහට? උදාහරණයක් විදිහට කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලෝ context එක establish කරන්නේ? කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලෝ environment එක identify කරන්නේ? කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලෝ risk එක assess කරන්නේ? සමහර කට්ටිය heat maps use කරනවා. සමහර කට්ටිය risk maps use කරනවා. එක එක strategies use කරනවා. මොනවද ඒ strategies? කොහොමද ඒක identify කරන්නේ? Interview එකෙන්ද brainstorm කරලා survey එකෙන්ද නැත්නම් observations වලින්ද ඒගොල්ලෝ කියලා තියෙනවා. ඉගෙන ගන්න. just කොහොමද ඒගොල්ලෝ risk treatment ඒකට තියෙනවා වෙනම table එකක් හදලා ඒගොල්ලෝ. ඒ treatment එක හරි. දැන් ඕගොල්ලන්ට මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන එක තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඒක analyze කරලා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට හිතනවා නම් මේගොල්ලෝ මේක කරලා මේ ක්‍රම තියෙන වැරදි. නැත්නම් තව මොකද include වෙනවා. So you can write your suggestions as for example for the strategies. So there will be some kind of a market risk. Right. To address that market risk, they are proposing on strategies, implement new products like this. So if you find out that there's any other solutions, you can propose that solution as well. You come up with the good ones, you're getting more marks. If it is rational, yeah, go me on a good, rationalize on the solutions, you know, that's very added point. Right. Clear? Any questions? Any questions? No. Nothing. Yeah. Nah, here framework එක ඒගොල්ලෝ issue කරනවා. here framework එක ගත්තොත් එහෙම company එකකට දෙන්නා. ඒකේ ඉතිරි වෙනවා. here එක ඒගොල්ලෝ කියනවා. publish කරනවා. මොකද here එක වැදගත් වෙනවා stakeholders discuss කරනවා. මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ මම company එකේ invest කරන්න යද්දී මම දැනගන්න ඕනේ මෙන්න මේ කියන company එක මෙන්න මේ risk identify කරලා තියෙනවා. මොනවද ඒගොල්ලෝ risk නැති කරගන්න කලින් strategies. ඒ අනුව තමයි invest කරනවා. generally කියනවා. ඔයා කියන්නේ detail strategies ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ඒගොල්ලෝ කියනවා අපි අලුත් product එකක් develop කරනවා මේකට. ඒ අලුත් product එක මොකක්ද අලුත් product එකේ specs මොනවද ඒවා කියන්නේ නැහැ. strategy එක කියන්නේ. right. ඒවා input internal information strategy එක කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? so the strategy එක identify කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඊයර strategy. මම break එකක් පස්සේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ පෙන්නන්න ආයෙත්. Right. Any other questions? Yes. No question. Okay. Can we have break? Right. 8:40, right? We'll start at 10:55.
mean, must stay in a baby. Let's say, it's like no same thing. Let's say, okay, but you yeah. Nah, nah, no, oh, enggak, enggak. Baik. Hari, Bapak. Hari, Bapak. Baik. Control the exam. It's a still family. Alright, what do you do? Really, to be alone. Jadi kita orang baik banget. Baik. Company ko. Company. Morning. Other morning. Illegal. Sri Lanka,
PSC had priority.
oh, CSC
Srilanka limited.
All important is PSC.
Sri Lanka PSC.
Yeah, that's PSC.
Running pages of the Q&A.
Post.
Right. Let's start. Excel. Because analyze on the information set. That's all. That they are the information that you have. At least the risk here. They got on the rest of them. That's a regulation which is there also. Later, that. And start. All of the now we are right. So this basically for your group assignment, right? So one example, I have taken the annual report of 2022-23, don't kill fault, JK annual report, right? So in the annual report, they have mentioned about the enterprise risk management framework. So we call it as ERM, right? So as I told you before, right? So they have given the overview, what they have done on the risk management. And you can see the risk management process. They have highlighted, right? Identify the risk, right? Assessment and rating of the risk. You can see, right? And they are having the mitigation of risk. What are the treatments? Different words, but the same thing, right? And reporting, risk reporting. And finally, you have the monitoring and control. That means the review and evaluation part, right? So this is the process they are following, right? And when you are looking at the risk rating matrix, right? If you can remember, I have told you that if you can quantify the risk, that is good. That means if you can give a value to the risk, it's very good. The risk can factual. Make a risk. Risk. If you can give a kind of a rating, kind of a number to that risk, is good to evaluate. Here, the matrix is given, right? So when you are building up the matrix, we are looking at the impact to the company and likelihood of occurrence. Likelihood and impact. Right? So we have given some values. Right? We have given some values. So insignificant, when it comes to impact, if it is insignificant, it is 1. Right? And the minor 2, high 3, very high 4, extreme 5. And also when it comes to the likelihood is remote. 1, unlikely 2, possible 3, likely 4, almost certain 5. So likewise, we have given the rating. So based on the rating, right? If you are having a 1 to 2 score, if you are multiplying this, if you are getting a 1 to 2 score, we call it that risk as insignificant. We don't want to look at that risk. Insignificant. Risk then 3 to 6 low risk. 7 to 9 medium. 10 to 12 high. 13 to 25 ultra high. Right? So that is how we give the some quantification for the risk. Right? Quantification for the risk. Right? So likewise, you have to quantify the risk. Right? Then someone not analyze the company again, maybe risk, high risk. If you are analyzing it, you alternate high risk. You can propose. Even the company is highlighted this as a high risk. As per our understanding, as per our information, so we can categorize this as ultra high. Based on the current situation. That way, annual report, the product of the country is just annual report. So that way the context you can make a you can propose. And then you can see some risk the company has been analyzed. Based on their risk rating. So they have highlighted the risk rating is medium. What is the risk? Other brokers not adhering to the bylaws. Brokers are not adhering to bylaws. That's the one risk they are identified. That risk is medium risk. Right? And how they are going to address or the risk response, what are the strategies they are following? canvassing to strengthen the Colombo Broker Association audit by extending it to cataloging and the warehousing of tea. Right. Don't get PLC check other brokers store and catalogs after the sale. Right. So the strategy is specifically to that company. To understand its response, so you need to analyze the whole company to understand the process. Then make a keyword over there in there, but this response, they will company can analyze. But the company again, context vehicle right. So here, lots of business due to factories closing down. Risk rating is medium. Factory business so how they are identified, how they are addressing that is the company closely monitors the green leaf intakes to the factories and the catalog quantities. Like they are basically discussable tea industry. Ensuring proper background check are carried out before when taking on new businesses. Right. So those are the strategies. Like there are so many. See, service they are identified. Here, information technology related risks. Like risk rating is low. The maker release the stakeholder application the risk rating is high here. Risk rating is high. Working stakeholders and shareholder expect high risk eliminate proposal. Right? A level proposals say no. Right? The risk rating is low. Even though the risk rating is low, they have highlighted some corrective actions or strategies. See, contract outsource vendor for the entirety of the solution. John Kears PLC invested in security infrastructure. Right? Conducting IT internal audit. So these are the strategies. So when it comes to risk, there are different risks we are having, right? We will discuss. The first one is the strategic risk. So next week discussion is that regarding the strategies. Then we are having the business risk. We are having the operations. Right? So 3 levels of risk we are having. So each risk they have identified. Strategic risk is what? When you are formulating the strategy, sometimes because of that, some risk can be arise. For example, your strategic direction is you are going to build a new car, like BYD, electrical car. Right? That is a strategic decision. So there will be some strategic risks. And the operational risk, what is the operational risk? Kind of supply chain disruption is the operational risk. Supply chain disruption. That's the operational risk. And the business risk, the computers are coming now. Right? Right. So because the risk can be divided into 3 parts. So in the annual report, they have addressed each of these natural disasters. They have identified risk rating is very low. Risk rating is low. Indication natural disaster ready already company. This current company natural disasters can risk rating high. Investigating the company natural disasters so address so this is the indicating this risk is low means they have already have some sort of mechanism to manage or mitigate this risk for a certain level. Right. So risk rating is low, what they are doing? They are having a science kind of plan. We ensure that our assets are adequately covered through insurance. Right. Right. So likewise, every company is having different sort of ERM framework. So in your assignment, what you have to do is you need to analyze this. Right? You need to analyze this. So most of the time you are analyzing the 2024 annual report. So now we are in the 2025. Right? So with the context, sometimes the risk can be changed. So we can propose. That's also you can do. For example, if the company is identified there is a interest rate risk. So nowadays, when it comes to interest rate, it is different. One of the key risks in the 2024, the bank is having the interest rate risk. සමහර කට්ටිය බැංකුවේ ණයට අරගෙන බැංකුවේ 9 ගාන ණයට ගත්තම 130 ගානයි ඩිපොසිට් කරනවා බැංකුවට. සමහර කාලයක් තිබුණේ ඉන්ට්‍රස්ට් රේට් එක ගොඩක් ලොකු හයි වුණා එකපාරට. ඩිපොසිට්ස් වලට 9% එකට ගත්ත අය 30% වලට බැංක් එකකට දානවා. Bank is making a loss. So like us. With the context change, sometimes the risk can be changed. So therefore, you have to propose. You can propose with the knowledge. You can propose the strategies. Right. Right. I think it's clear. So likewise, you need to pick a company, good company, right? So when you are picking a company, right? So don't pick some isolated companies, right? There are some BSAA companies, even though the BSAA companies, there are some isolated companies, like the Colombo, right? It's a kind of isolated company, even though the BSAA, right? Technology impact again, a local there, tobacco world, our competitors on any global commander, right? Market take on open availability. They will be a local regulation risk. Business risk and strategic decision product. I would think whenever feel like products and the regular mergers and acquisitions to get a able area. Tobacco in a field together. They will win a technology is my will. So they are limited scope. So limited scope in the company to promote the product analysis and for information that is the product by scope in the company selected. Products are the two of company selected. Like gauge, Hades, display. So don't take isolated companies. Some companies are there, isolated. Or work in a kind of only one field, right? So the information availability is less, right? So not only the ERM framework, but also in the governance descriptions, also they have mentioned about this risk management, what they have done. But the committees they are having, right? Like we are going to the corporate governance report. ඇත්තටම මේ annual report එක පාඩම් කරලා කියන තෝරන example එකක් පුළුවන්. right? දැන් අපි කතා කරපු problem තියෙනවා. responsibilities මොනවද? independent judgments මොනවද? the roles and responsibilities of the board. You can see what are the roles and responsibilities. So you can see subcommittees here. So they are having different committees, right? We have only learned about nomination committee, right? Audit committee like us. But in the loan field also you can see board audit committee, that means the audit committee, right? And human resource compensation committee, right? And project risk assessment committee of parent JKH. Related party transaction review committees, right? Nomination committee. Like us, different committees are there. So if you have identified the risk, you can suggest the committees as well. For example, in the director board, there is some kind of risk is there. Right? So you can use this example. So what you have to do is when you are doing this assignment, right, my purpose is you have to read this annual report very carefully. Right? From beginning to the up to the financial statements. The financial statement also you can read the notes. then you can identify some risk. So you have to read this. Over read करो देता है over दा table ने वो context है वाली. ता ये लोग मुकाते करन. ता उधर summarize करके मेरे क्या वाला. ये भी देखा है दा read out देखा है ना ता hard copy का गन्ना हुआ ना. हमारे कंपनी से बोलो यूज़ दे दो hard copy. अरे ना क्या वाला analyze करो. तो ये हट्टे होता है क्यों ना सकता थोड़ी देर का फोन हुआ ठीक है नंदे के लिए तो करना हुआ भी ठीक है कोई वाले इनिशियल स्टेज का थोड़ी मीटिंग नंदा का हट्टे को तो थोड़ी हट्टे का ताला कर राइट राइट आई थिंक इट्स क्लियर राइट ऑनलाइन कीने की ना अबे में ऑनलाइन जोड़ने आवाज़ डन है उधर ग्रुप से रहते ऑनलाइन रिलेटिव
सब पास नहीं ऑनलाइन में
right before going to this case study right I just finish off this theoretical part and integrate an approach to the corporate risk management right corporate risk management refers to all the methods that the company use to minimize the financial losses risk managers executives line managers and the field managers as well as all employees perform practice to prevent loss exposed through internal controls of people and technologies. Risk management also relates to external threats to operations such as fluctuation in the financial market that affects its financial assets. So what do you mean by the corporate risk management? That means the ERM. When it comes to the ERM approach, everyone in the company needs to join with this risk management process. And risk management obviously getting clean. They are interact risk management. So company के भी integrated part है आपको देखना कि risk management के लिए हमें भी इंक्लूड है ये वाला क्या है right everyone should be involved in this risk management process right then you have to do it. So when you are suggesting the strategies so you can suggest those strategies everyone needs to incorporate with the work of the risk management right. So protecting shareholders, risk management helps ensure that the financial well-being of the company's shareholders by control risk that would impact the investments. Right, that is our primary objective, right? Maximizing the wealth of the shareholders. Therefore, we have to manage the risk to protect the shareholders' interest. Right. Type of risk, business space, various risk vary, including financial losses, property damage. Located reputation harm and disruptions can be there. Probability and the consequences. Risk manager analyze the likelihood of these events and their potential financial impact to prioritize mitigation strategies. Solutions. Risk managers with their understanding of finance and business process recommend solutions like insurance or loss prevention measures to address the cost of critical risks. Right. So all these things happen by involving everyone. That's why we call it as integrated approach. Right. Integrated approach. Right. Right. The final part is risk reporting. Right. What do you mean by risk reporting? We have seen one risk reporting. That one report. Right. That is one. Right. So risk reporting can be done externally as well as internally. अभी एग्रीजन किस को तक रिस्क रिपोर्ट कराना है एक्सटर्नल पार्टीज को तक रिस्क रिपोर्ट करना right in the annual report we are providing information about risk to the external parties that we call it as external report. So your friend is asking whether we can give the information about the internal factors in company. Sometimes we can't because some risk factors we are reporting internally. That we call it the internal reporting. So risk report we can do internally as well as externally. So I have incorporated a PDF document which discuss about the risk reporting. So what you can do is you can read that and summarize that document. It is discussing about the risk reporting, the external reporting and the internal. The meaning of this external reporting is you need to report the risk about the risk to the external parties or third parties. And internal reporting is for the management, for the executive, for the internal parties. You need to give the information about the risk. These kind of risk we have it. These are the strategies we are following. You have to report it. So that's we call it as risk reporting. The information regarding the risk reporting is there in that PDF document. So I'm not going to discuss. Every detail is there. I know how I saw it. Right. All right. So with that, I'm moving on to the question. A very small question which will cover up what we have discussed till now. Right. Right. Your company is a leading manufacturer of medical devices. You have recently launched a new product. Right. Relating to kind of a hardware, right? Right. It's expected to be a major success. However, there have also been concerns about the potential for the rare side effects. Right. The questions: what are the key risks associated with the launch of new product? How would you go about establish the context for these risks? What methods would you use to identify the potential risks? Once you have identified the risks, how would you assess them? What risk treatment options would you consider for the most significant risks? How would you develop a plan to monitor and reduce the risk associated with new product? Right. So there is a kind of a incident number. The company is going to implement a new product. Right. They are actually working in a medical field. Right. What you are to do? You need to run with the risk management process. That's what I'm asking you the question. So try to answer with the limited information. You can use the external information as well, external knowledge about the legal field and so on. First of all, you need to identify the risks. What are the risks associated with this new product? So what are the key risks you have identified? Key risks. Financial risks. So, usually, yes, we can say financial risks. How this comes to the financial risks.
It's a scientific amount there. Yeah.
So you do some side effects, right? So if you are limiting this product, right? Financial risk can be there, right? So if it is not generating the expectation of the right financial risk is there because sometimes because of the side effects, because of the issues with the device, right? People are not buying this device. Financial risk can be there. Yes, very important when from the medical sector, right? The regulations is there, right? Even though it's not in Srilanka, right? The regulations are there for the medical sector, right? Before, I don't know, before implementing or before giving the medical device to the general public, there are so many things ongoing. There are so many regulations are there to get their approval, right? And when they are looking at the devices, established criteria are satisfied. So we think they are going to, yeah, it is regulated. Regulation is there. Like sometimes even though you have developed a good product, sometimes regulators are not happy. Regulation is one of the biggest risks. Those guys can get. Yes. Operation is one kind of operation risk is a kind of a load. It is not specific to this one. Operation risk can be a burden. Functional risk. Feasibility. Operation I say you have devices, critical devices, medical on nothing about safety risk is key. Right? Can there's safety risk based on the antigen test, antigen for the COVID. Also, there are some safety risks are there. Right? Safety risks. Yes. Market risk. Market risk can be there. Right? Some other countries also there. They also providing new devices. So in our device, there is a non-detailed recipe, but computers provide their devices, digital screens. So market risk can be there. Any other reasons? Safety risk, regular risk, financial risk, market risk, supply chain disruptions can be there. Right? So we will implement these devices or to with the production sort of things, right? We do have some of those ideas, right? If the supply chain disruptions and all that, we can't do it. That's another risk. Potential risk is something. Technology risk is something. Can be right. good technological risk because we are using a volatile market in some of the medical sector, right? So today we are implementing this product, but next day, sometimes because of the new products, because of the technology, the demand will be not there. Technology will be there. So likewise, you can find out the risk. It is not to different. Then the medical sector or manufacturing field, I think where the risk is. Right. The company can go and risk change. In a context, education field, education field, risk AI technology. Education is not interesting. Context changes, risk changes, right? How would you go about establishing the context for this risk? So, how you identify the environment? What we can do? Yes. So the body environment. What we can do? So context means you need to identify the environment. What sort of internal and external environment we are looking for? Basically, what are the internal sort of factors we need to look at? What are the external factors we need to look at? So you can do the context analysis. What are the methods would you use to identify the potential risk? What are the methods? What are the methods? Then a medical device can be done. It's common risk, the potential risk identified. What are the methods? Yes, you can do research. Research. Yes, correct. Experiments or research. You can have brainstorming sessions. Brainstorming means for example, when you are building up this medical device, there are different sectors will be involved. Critical sector, right? R&D sector. So you can ask the expert what kind of potential risk is embedded in each product. Brainstorm. And you can use the scenario analysis as I told you before. And if you implement this product, what other scenarios can be realized? Scenario analysis. You can interview. You can give to, let's say, different samples and you can interview them. What kind of experience you are having? What are the issues? Yes. Survey, interview. Right? Survey means you can share some kind of document and you can ask the feedbacks from it. And although you can have some interview with the experts, not like brainstorming. Brainstorming is asking from the people who is involved in the process. Expert means like doctors, what's their expectation regarding this kind of product? What are they going to expect and the product getting included on one? Experts like maybe field again the market on the likewise, you can identify the potential risk. Next, once you have identified the risk, how would you assess it? How are you going to assess it? How are you going to design the level of the potential risk you have identified? So you can assess the risk in a qualitative way and a quantitative way. What do you mean? Qualitative and the quantitative. Qualitative means you can have the view. For example, you are having the theory of the product. That's a quantitative. It's a qualitative. Qualitative. What is the quantitative? You can give the numbers. Based on the numbers, you can decide whether the high or low. So So when it comes to the quantitative base, we are having a different approach. After statistical methods, we are making another statistical methods. ये subject statistical methods में आपने discrete number करते हैं, ये discrete number करते हैं, discrete data एक क्वेश्चन तो कुछ इसमें so basic this matrix we can have the heat maps that we will discuss in the next week. Heat maps. So based on the heat maps we can give some numbers in the list. Based on that we can decide whether this is the ideal. So there are some techniques to assess the risk. We will discuss this. So we can assess the risk using the qualitative base and the quantitative base. Right. What are the risk treatments options would you consider for most significant risks? What are the risk treatment methods? One is avoid. Right. Because we are in high risk, we are not going to implement this in person. Avoid. Yeah, avoid. Right. We can transfer the risk, right? How we can transfer? We can have the insurance. If it is failed, the insurance will refund that. We can share. We can have some amalgamation. We can have some kind of business relationship with distribution companies. We are producing the product and we are giving it to distribution company. Distribution company is having risk of distribution. So we are sharing our risk. And we can reduce service. Right? We can get some, we can have some internal controls, good internal controls to check whether this product before going to the market. Yes, so likewise, we can have them discrete. Right? And how would you develop a plan to monitor and review the risk associated with this new product? So after having all of these risk options, these treatment options, you need to have the monitoring system, right? You need to have the evaluation system. Right? Evaluation system. So how we can do it? So before going to the market, you can have a kind of a test environment, right? You can do testing. You can release the product with the market, right? And you can, for example, you can have few group of people, and you can give it that product again and check whether it's working well. Evaluation. You can evaluate. So like that, different activities we can use. So I will give this. I will upload the answer to this question. So there are so many questions I have to upload the answers. Right? All of these things I will upload the answers before the exam. Right? I will keep it available because if I am uploading that answer, so you are going with that part. Therefore, that's why I will keep it. So you can look at that and I will upload the answer to you all these questions. We have discussed it now. All right, any questions? Yeah, Mr. Context. Context here now we environment के design कर. लेकिन अभी business से medical field में तो medical field के आप करते हैं ना external factors, internal factors और economy. Medical field में मतलब regulation, government की involvement के वजह से अंदाज कर सकते हैं medical field. External factors. Internal factors में आप इधर ये transfer होने का highly देखिए आप बना नहीं है तो training होते हैं ना इसको तो अभी आने पर reputation अगर रिस्क है तो एक कभी बड़ी करने के लिए तो लोग चलाए नहीं होते लेकिन क्या हम जानते हैं अभी कंटेक्स्ट में होगा तो अभी बात करते हैं मैं मेडिकल फील्ड है अभी बात करते हैं मैं एजुकेशन फील्ड के एक्सटर्नल कंटेक्स्ट की वजह से तो रेगुलर तो बड़ा कला होता है एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स इसमें ये ना मैं कहा कि स्टूडेंट्स का इधर है तो मेडिकल फील्ड है तो थोड़ा एक्सटर्नल प्रेशर है रेपुटेशन रिस्क के लिए तो बड़ा फर्क है तो ये कंटेक्स्ट के कारण पैदा अभी वर्क करते कंटेक्स्ट एक बार Right? Here. This. No. No. Right. All right. So this finally, for MP, we are starting from 9. And you are with from 9 to 10. Okay. You are what? Over the keep up you are the right. Now we are in the diamond or hit a quiz ceremony. What a scientific in the Lampacas, keep a local in the material for my city. A little one. 30 minutes for a copy and master. 30 minutes of who is the guy? Who is the open the Ladino or 1 hour? Right? So, Namane, the height of a good, but I think the Vidan is said. Who is the young world? Where is saying the process? Palamila, the height is on a good. Who is the United States also? He doesn't want to go to the United States also. Sealing a pair. We still United on getting them. Sealing a pair, we still United States. The sealing a pair or United or them or a 90 right. The expert and the heights of Lanka, United the height, who is the given? I am already who's the given. These are Volcan and the path, United States, who is the close to the United States. In sealing the ocean, automatically we see automatically walking position copy to 30 minutes. Someone was something automatically come as it. Now, it was the other way. You can't even back to it. You have finished the one question and go forward. You did a company possible there. It was the end of our Savaya. They are going to pay them, Baragana, they are a click of them, question they have mine. It was a question over the next then pin that big pin, a bar load in the internet connection. Our they are a board, like a so they must up in the they are particular Lisa, who they initial are